Good morning from the Marathon Desk hosted by Bitcoin Magazine here in beautiful Miami at the Bitcoin Conference 2022. This is the first day of general admission, and we are so excited to be here with you to talk about the speakers, the lineup, some of the things that happened yesterday at Industry Day. And we have a beautiful panel here to discuss with me. We're going to have a conversation. You guys can listen in. I'm Natalie Brunell, host of the Coin Stories podcast. And here with me today, Stefan Livera. He's a podcaster as well, also a director at Swan Bitcoin. Pete Rizzo, editor of Bitcoin Magazine, and Elise Colleen. So excited to see you. She was the founder of Stillmark, a venture capital fund for Bitcoin. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
To be here.
I'm looking forward to today.
How's everybody feeling?
Good. Also ready to go. Yesterday was fun, and today I'm even more excited.
I think the hype level is high, right? This is the day where we're going to see the big announcements. We're going to have Cash App on stage early. We're going to have Jack Mallers on later. And I think, as we know from Twitter, there's a lot of expectations. So interested to see what happens.
Yeah. You guys are going to see our reactions pretty much live because we're going to be watching the speeches as well. And then it's going to come back to us and we're probably going to be shocked at some of them, right? Yeah.
Hopefully.
Okay, so here's what I want to know. Yesterday, I was really busy working, so I missed some of the talks. Maybe some of the people in the audience also are trying to catch up on what happened yesterday. So if you guys were there, can you talk about some of the speeches? I know, Pete, we were chatting a little bit about Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, Kevin O'Leary came out hot, polarizing speech, sending a signal to Washington, asking the Bitcoin community to embrace regulation, laying out his plan for what he would like, U.S. Making stablecoins legal in the U.S., also talking about Bitcoin mining and how it's green and how it should go green, talking about carbon credits for Bitcoin. So interesting to get the different reactions on the panel as that unfolded. But I think a lot of calls yesterday for Washington to get involved. And then Janet Yellen speaking this morning, not too much from her other than, the standard of what we've seen, which is Washington wants to get involved. It wants to regulate. And, it'll be interesting to see what happens on stage today if there's any advancement on that.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting because she's speaking at the same time as obviously the conference is going on. And I'm hearing that on the bearish side, she's going to be saying that obviously cryptocurrencies put our financial system at risk, which you can't say that about Bitcoin. Maybe you could say that about, the securities, the other coins. But then on the bullish side, she's saying that this could revolutionize and bring innovation to payment systems. So it's interesting to see her kind of turning, right? It seems like a lot of regulators and policymakers are turning.
They've almost been forced into commenting, right? Because there's so much news and advancement, development in the space, they kind of have to respond, So it's almost like they're being dragged to the table.
And everybody's moved, right? You saw China come out with a ban. Even the UK, right, is saying they're going to legalize crypto stable coins. We don't really know what that looks like, but, we have El Salvador, obviously. But, everybody is moving. And I think, this is, it looks a bit like, saying something to be in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Elise, what are your thoughts?
Well, I suppose that... what are my thoughts? I suppose that I'm pleased that people feel the need to comment on Bitcoin and on stable coins, and especially at the time when we're seeing the two converge. So on Tuesday, for example, Lightning Labs announced the ability for stablecoins to be transacted on Lightning Network. So that will mean peer-to-peer, instant, virtually free transactions, very relevant in emerging markets, but also in the US. And so as Bitcoin at the protocol level begins to more closely compete with SWIFT or provide similar value to commercial banking for its end users, I expect regulators to pay even more close attention. My hope, of course, is that they're also seeking education.
Yeah, you're talking about Taro, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, yesterday I was on a panel with Lynn Alden, and she's super excited about that as well. Elizabeth Stark's always, it seems like, pushing innovation, so it's great.
They're on the edge for sure. So Taro was an innovation advanced by Lalu, who's CTO, co-founder of Lightning Labs, and announced on Tuesday, Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 5 bips. It'll be really interesting to see how that the community reacts. What's your take so far on that?
So I said yesterday on my panel that I think that stablecoins on Lightning and assets on Lightning in general are the kill shot to other cryptocurrencies and competing blockchain protocols.
So what are your guys' thoughts on Terra and purchasing, trying to get to $10 billion worth of Bitcoin? Because I know some Bitcoiners are super skeptical about it. If you watch Twitter, I think probably the most critical has been someone from Swan, Corey Clifton, CEO, who's just like, no, critical. Like this is going to go down in history as a big scam. But others say, this is going to drive more adoption. You guys have opinions?
So we don't necessarily have to there are lots of people have their own reasons for buying Bitcoin. We don't necessarily all have to like their
Yeah.
reasons for buying Bitcoin. And I think for someone like Corey, his concern is more that people are going to, I guess, run into something because they think it's coming and not realize that it's, he's
Yeah.
worried about a rug ball, right? He's
For
worried
sure.
about this.
We
Well,
should be.
Look, it's complicated technology, right? So we're talking about Terra. We're talking about this algorithmic stable coin that runs off this Luna cryptocurrency. And I think we have to remember where the money is coming for these Bitcoin purchases. They're exciting, but this is a distributed organization that has sold this coin, and we could presume that this is where the money comes from, right? People are
Yeah.
buying the Luna token. And the presumption that it'll be valuable long term, and they're taking this money and buying Bitcoin with it to back that token. Again, I think always exciting to see people make big Bitcoin purchases. His tweet yesterday, went out, walked my dog, bought
Yeah.
McDonald's, bought
230 million.
$230 million worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Epic tweet will probably live forever, as one of the great tweets in Bitcoin history. But yeah, look, a lot to be skeptical about. I think stable coins in general, it's been great to see the Bitcoin community come around and really understand that, this can be a humanitarian tool. People do want a refuge from the price volatility of both, fiat currencies that are declining and Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
In some cases, right? So I don't know. I think it's very exciting that the stablecoin conversation is coming back to Bitcoin because I do think that it would be great to see the technology of Bitcoin move forward. And again, exciting about Taro, but
Yeah.
still too early maybe.
But isn't it interesting that we're seeing these massive purchases? I mean, $100 million here, MicroStrategy through the subsidiary MacroStrategy with the loan. And the price is not budging anymore. It's like we're past that point. Like what's going to be that next leg up that we're going to see? What do we need for it?
Well, I'm the token bear in these conversations. I think we're, and it'll be interesting to see what happens on stage today. I think we're trapped a little bit in declining expectations, right? Q4 last year, people were so hyped. They expected the moon. Moon's on the cover of Bitcoin magazine. They didn't necessarily get the moon, right?
Yeah.
So they are now sort of seeing an environment where, maybe they had these big expectations. Maybe those expectations were met. Even Bukele canceling on the conference yesterday, which is
know.
something we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Probably not going over well on Twitter. But look,
Yeah.
if you're following how retail's reacting, I think they're frustrated, right? They want to see Jack Mallers come out and look at some of these rumors with him about Apple and like big companies,
Yeah.
right? I don't think there's going to be an announcement that you can make on this stage that will be good enough for this market. I think the expectations are
Yeah.
far too high. What do people want? If
Right.
12 countries came out and instead they would accept Bitcoin as legal tender, I don't know if it would be enough. My take.
How much is enough? How many countries would be enough, Pete?
Well, it has everything to do with sentiment, right?
Yeah.
It's not about reality, right?
Yeah.
The fundamentals are that Bitcoin is always improving, right? Whether the technical layer or understanding,
Yeah.
that's always going up and the right. But
Right.
whether people see that, that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's my question is just the market sentiment.
Yeah.
Your person who was interested last year,
Yeah.
the friend told them about it in August, right?
Sure.
They're going to have a very different outlook than, us who've been in the industry for a
But
long time.
here's maybe I'm not like a full perma bull, but maybe it's like, yeah, okay. There's like the news waxes and wanes,
Right,
right?
right,
But
right, yeah.
there's always this underlying growth in the
Exactly.
DCA army, the stackers, the people who are just regularly stacking, whether they're a corporate, whether they're a high net worth individual, whether they're whether they're just a retail everyday person. And so maybe some of that is just it's just going in the background. But of course, we get this kind of waxing and waning
the
of the
growth
cycle.
in Bitcoin is amazing over time. Even something that hasn't got enough coverage. ExxonMobil coming out and
Yeah.
Right.
mining Bitcoin. This is one
Yeah.
of the largest companies in the world, and that's when you see that the market doesn't really react to that. That's why I
Right.
think we're in the declining expectations. Again, I'm
Right.
not saying this because I'm bearish on Bitcoin. Long term, I think there's
Right.
a lot. Every reason to be bullish, but
Right.
I do think we have to think that the market is made up of buyers and sellers.
Right.
And a lot of the people who were buyers might be considering selling, and that's
Right.
just how it feels.
Well, not only the ExxonMobil, but also insurance companies now holding, but they're not holding
Right.
gold. They're putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And I think that's huge. And that's a story that's kind of hidden and below the surface as well, because that could also eventually be a market mover.
Well, I think the reason you're seeing so much emphasis on regulation is because the institutions right now, you just can't hold Bitcoin if you're a
Yeah.
large institution, right?
Right.
The reason that they're trading the crypto Bitcoin futures, right? We saw yesterday another Bitcoin futures
Yeah.
ETF was approved.
Futures.
Right? But
Yeah.
that's not going to change. That maybe needs regulation, and maybe that's what Kevin O'Leary, was talking about yesterday. Also, we saw Francis Suarez, mayor mayor of Miami, saying that the next president will embrace Bitcoin. Maybe teasing a run. I don't know what you guys thought. It seemed like he wants the spotlight for sure.
It's really interesting because you were talking about, no announcement could potentially move the price. I'm not going to lie. I mean, before the conference, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, there's going to be probably, some major announcements here and it's going to shoot up. And I'm like, I need to buy before then. And then of course the opposite happens. And I swear, it's my luck that whenever I buy, the price shoots down. And I'm like, I could have just waited, a couple days and had a couple extra $1,000.
You got to have patience. Bitcoin's a long game. I mean, we know that. We know that. We've been here for a long time, right? But look, for people at home who are looking at the market, we need builders. We need people who are going to push the industry forward, right? The car's not always going 60 miles an hour. Sometimes you have to get out and push. And, we need more bright minds.
And that sort of work takes a while to digest, I think, for investors. And so Bitcoin's intrinsic fundamental value has certainly been increasing as the protocol has become more secure, more private, more stable. And at the same time, utility has expanded. All of that drives the underlying value of Bitcoin, the asset, but it takes a while to digest. And so I think we'll see the impact of these major announcements this week. For instance, stablecoins on Lightning, like we talked about before, but it might take longer to see the price react to it.
I'll jump in there and just say, and specifically with Taro, right? That's a proposal that's based on a proposal that was made almost like 6 or 7 years ago, right? Client-side validation by Peter Todd. That was something that the kind of Taro builds on, right? This is how Bitcoin development moves forward. It moves forward to somebody, pushing out an idea, that idea going through a review, and then eventually it's a long, slow process, right? Bitcoin is being built out, and it isn't, everything up forever,
I think there's a difference though between slow and purposeful. So to talk a little bit about this specifically, Taro is the result of an advancement allowed by Taproot, which activated just last year. And it's also the result of feedback from adoption in El Salvador. And so what Lightning Labs saw when Bitcoin became legal tender in El Salvador was that people really wanted to use the rails. They wanted access to the global economy. For many people, it was the first time, but to tolerate the volatility was difficult.
Yeah.
So if your household's income is a couple $100s a month and your expenses are also a couple $100s a month, it's very convenient to use Lightning, but difficult to use Bitcoin, at least at first. And so actually, I think I want to push back on what Pete said because I thought the iteration there was light speed. To go from Q4 user feedback to Q2 announcements of a response to that, stablecoins on Lightning is incredibly quick.
Yeah.
Have you guys been to El Salvador, by the way?
Yes.
You have?
I have not. I think I might be the only one on the panel.
No, I have not.
Okay.
We'll go together.
Yes.
Book it.
Yes, exactly.
But what you said was interesting to me because I went for the first time this year. I went twice in the span of a couple weeks, and I was so inspired by the fact that Bitcoin was so immersed in some of the communities there, like Bitcoin Beach, El Zonte, where, that's where Bitcoin started in terms of El Salvador's adoption. But for most people, they have no concept of saving. So they do use it and they have their Strike wallet or their Bitcoin Beach wallet, and they're excited about it and about the potential, especially because there's entrepreneurs coming to the city and there's so much attention and a spotlight placed on El Salvador. But because of what you mentioned, it's like they make a certain amount. They sometimes have to take loans out just to, purchase the things that they need to sell at the Mercado. They don't have a concept of actually accumulating Bitcoin and putting it away for the long term as a savings technology. And so I think educational efforts are underway, but much more needs to be done in terms of what this is, how they can use it as both in terms of utility, like in the form of Lightning and harnessing the power of stablecoins as a transactional medium of exchange, but also as a store of value, because that's what they need. They need to be able to save for the future so that they don't have to potentially leave the country.
Yeah, so volatility to the upside is still volatility.
That's right. So here's what we think is going to happen. So we think that we will see people adopt Bitcoin through Lightning and perhaps first through stablecoins on Lightning. Learning about the robustness of the tech and what it can do, people will start to be curious and also more confident in the asset. And now I'm specifically talking about populations in emerging markets. And from there, they can start to dabble in savings.
Yes.
And when there's a long-term perspective, of course, Bitcoin's volatility is favorable for those sorts of families. But it's a big ask to get comfortable both with a new tech and Bitcoin's volatility at
Yeah.
the same time.
To be able to save in something is just difficult when your income is just not high enough
Yeah.
to. And so it could be that Bitcoin's like broader overall adoption is actually factually is driven by a kind of high net worth and speculators in the richer Western countries.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is functionality that will help people who are not coming from that same level of wealth. And but I think the other point I just wanted to add as well with protocol and advancements is sometimes things come out and they're very abstract and they're not easy for the average user. Like it needs to be put into a product,
Right.
and even then there are people who might be savvy or want that thing, but they've kind of been confused or they've kind of even some of the speakers
Well,
can.
I would say the demand for
Yeah.
stablecoins is huge. I'll jump in with a different experience. You can read about it in the Bitcoin magazine. I went to Lebanon, hung out with Saifedean Ammous.
Right.
Obviously hyperinflation going on there. And,
No big deal.
Right.
hyperinflation going on there, but it's real, right? And people want that stability of
Yeah.
the dollar, right? And even Bitcoiners there, this was the thing that really kind of struck me when I was there. They have to use stablecoins. They're effectively debanked. They're buying stablecoins OTC via Telegram, and that's what they're using to stack sats to buy Bitcoin. But I think it's just amazing to like how entrenched stablecoins have become, and that's why I'm personally glad that the conversation has moved back to how can we incorporate this on Bitcoin, bring this back to the Bitcoin chain, because
Yes.
really other cryptocurrencies that they are getting adoption there, right?
Yeah.
I think I walked into a shop to do a transaction, and someone asked me if I wanted my stablecoin on Ethereum or Tron, right? Like they do know they want this
Wow.
safety from volatility, and they're willing to use new technology to get it, and I think that can be powerful for Bitcoin.
Have you guys heard of Anita Push, or have you read her book, Learning Bitcoin? So she's obviously doing a lot of work in the developing world and trying to spread education. And I was speaking to her yesterday on a stage, and I love what she said. I hadn't heard it before, but she's like, "Let's keep the unbanked unbanked. 'Cause
Yeah.
we don't need banks. We just need Bitcoin and empower people through that technology as it grows on multiple layers." So I just thought that was cool.
Good tagline.
What are you guys most excited about for today? I mean, we have such a big day at the conference for people tuning in. I mean, this is day 2 technically, but day 1 for general admission, for all the plebs coming in, the normies coming in, super excited. And I'm certainly excited for all the announcements as well. Cash App, right? We're going to have speeches from some really, really, really big names. What are you guys most looking forward to?
I'll jump in. I'll take Jack Mallers, CEO of Strike. I think that expectations are so high. I'm hoping he proves me wrong. I said there's nothing that can be done, no announcement that will be good enough for the market. I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I'm hoping that he gets on stage and hits just a slam dunk.
Yeah. What about you, Elise?
I have to cheat on this question and say I'm excited because one of my colleagues at Stillmark is speaking today for the first time at a Bitcoin conference. And so he will be taking a more technical perspective. He comes from a research engineer background to present that perspective on the Bitcoin VC panel today.
Can you share just a little bit more about Stillmark for maybe people who aren't familiar and just sort of the VC Bitcoin world?
Sure. So I entered Bitcoin in 2013, but coming from a venture capital perspective, and we were investing then in new infrastructures. So we were looking at the time that I found Bitcoin at the transition from enterprise to a hybrid cloud model. So I found Bitcoin as a protocol. In 2019, we launched Stillmark to be the first Bitcoin dedicated VC fund. And we're investing both in companies targeting Bitcoin's core value proposition as an asset, as well as those building on top of the protocols. We also are working with companies across the world, including folks that were very active in enabling El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin.
Wow, that's awesome. Stefan, what are you most excited for?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just, I want to stay up on what the announcements are. But at the same time, it's just crazy to stay up on top of things in this space, right? We've got Taro, we've got this, we've got some mining stuff happening, there's lightning things going on. How does anyone
I
stay
also
on
will
top?
say we just have some really exciting speakers. Max Kaiser will be on the stage later with Mr. Dave Portnoy, who will be on this stage later with you guys. What's going to happen on that panel, who can say?
Yeah. No, I'm super excited too. And just the scale of this event, this is my second Bitcoin conference. And I'd love to hear how many for you guys. Like, I'm still relatively new to Bitcoin. I started investing in 2017. And like so many people, I was exposed to it and I just didn't get it. I guess I had enough of a risk tolerance to just invest because I thought it was gambling, essentially. I was like, well, if I put a little bit in, who knows, maybe it'll take off. But I didn't understand what I was investing in. And 2 years later, I was given the Bitcoin Standard by a mentor. And thank God, because that like changed my whole life. And I've told Saifedean so many times, I'm like, you changed my life. You ultimately changed my career, everything. And then last year, my girlfriend and I, we decided to come to the Bitcoin conference. We knew nobody. We got media passes.
You were last year handing out T-shirts here, right?
I was handing out business cards. I had just published 4 episodes of my podcast because I had collected. I basically was like, this is my passion. This is my passion, little passion project hobby. I'm going to put out maybe 12 episodes. I'm going to try to get the biggest voices in Bitcoin to talk to me somehow. And, I'll put it out and just, see what happens just for fun. And we came to the conference. We would hand out business cards in the men's bathroom because the line was out the door, right? So it was just guys standing there with nothing to do. So we were like, listen to this podcast if you want, hear Max Kaiser's backstory, hear Pompliano's backstory. And just to think like a year, it hasn't even been a year, but a year later, like you guys wanted me on this desk. Like
Unbelievable story. In front of this volcano.
And the scale of this is even bigger. I'm just in shock sometimes. I mean, Bitcoin is growing so quickly as an asset. The community is growing so quickly. The adoption is growing so quickly. It's truly incredible. And I think that there's no more capitalistic industry, honestly, that is just really, you're driven by like merit and truly just what you have to offer, proof of work, what you can contribute to the community, and everybody's welcome to it. It's just awesome.
Well, certainly early Bitcoin conferences were a lot less exciting. It was about 100 people in a small room, usually with no windows. But I will say what's great about Bitcoin 2022, as you said, this is where the counterculture of Bitcoin is played, really the Bitcoin culture, right? People here, there's going to be mainstream artists, athletes, right? This is where people are kind of getting that first touch with the industry, and hopefully they'll have maybe a same experience as you. So.
Yeah, it's funny. Stacey Herbert was saying that she used to go to these conferences and hand out like, oh, here's 10 Bitcoin, here's 100 Bitcoin. Yeah. And today,
and people would leave them on the floor. You could not give Bitcoin away back then.
I mean, I was wondering, like, is that what sats are going to be like someday? If we get like, if we get dollar sat parity someday, that would be incredible. Because sure, you could give away some sats. It's no big deal. But it's just crazy.
I remember, I think even when people were signing back up on Coinbase, you would get like 1 Bitcoin. That was like $10 worth. It's like your free sign up. Nowadays when you sign up for a service, it used to be like that. I
don't think about how many Bitcoin I turned down over the years. So.
Or how many sats have been lost. I mean, everyone's made their mistakes and lost coins. And, when I was a new coiner and learning and left some coins on a custodial wallet because I was a noob and I didn't really know. And,
But at the same time, I think we should encourage people at home. Look, if you didn't come this year, if you're watching the live stream, experiment, download a wallet. It's not hard, right? You get over that mental barrier. If you've done enough to watch the stream, you've gone to youtube.com/Bitcoin Magazine, go to a website, find a wallet, and tinker with it, right? If you lose $5, is it the end of the world to you? Probably not, right? But I always try to encourage people to be playful with Bitcoin.
Yeah, use
it.
That's
one of the things.
It's best to use it from practical knowledge.
Right. Yeah, to get your hands on it, and it's just really,
because there are a lot of bloviators and people who talk about it without having actually done the work, and it shows. I think that's part of like with Bitcoin's culture. People really want to see that you've done the work and that you are accurate and technically precise.
There was a door guy here. He's really shy. Yesterday morning, I was coming in, and he's like, "I'm curious about Bitcoin," and I was like, "Okay, download a wallet. I'll send you some Bitcoin." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And we did it. It took 3 minutes. I sent him $15. He sent it back to me because he wouldn't accept my Bitcoin, but he downloaded the wallet and he saw what it was, right? And I think that's been the big leap now is you can really get those seamless experiences where before it just wasn't, really possible. But the technology is now there. And look, I think those are the magical experiences where you really we can talk about Bitcoin all we want, abstractly at the protocol level. All this stuff is great. But people really need to see that, you can send money. You can just download a wallet. You don't need a bank. You can download that wallet. I could send money to you, and you can send it to your friend in, wherever in the world, in Lebanon, El Salvador, wherever. I think that's really where the change happens.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. I just think it's so interesting that my experience is like so many where you need a few touches and exposures to Bitcoin to really start to appreciate it. So like you go from skeptical probably, or maybe entirely dismissive to skeptical to curious to all of a sudden now you're investing for me, I was just like at one point I fell so far down the rabbit hole that I was pretty much like, I can't, this can never be stopped.
Well,
This is the
and the
future.
rabbit hole never ends, right? You
Right.
can,
Yeah.
you really can go that deep with Bitcoin, right? As Elise was talking about the protocol level, look, everybody starts at zero with Bitcoin. Like nobody was an expert, right? Satoshi made this protocol, he released it, and even the early developers who were coming to it, right?
Yeah.
Like they didn't know, right? So I think this is something we're building together. And as I was saying before, it's like, sometimes the car goes 60 miles an hour, but sometimes you have to get out and push, and we need people who are going to help us build this.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on President Bukele saying he's not going to come anymore? I guess we expected it, or no?
I wasn't expecting it, but I mean, yeah, all this stuff with the gangs. I mean, I presume that's why he has to stay and attend to that. And I was looking forward to what he was going to be saying, and unfortunately, he won't be here today. But I'm sure he's busy and got things to deal with.
Yeah, I thought it was shocking. I thought there was a lot of, look, Bukele's done a tremendous amount for Bitcoin, increasing the public perception. Obviously, has a domestic situation to handle there as president. But yeah, it would have been great to hear from him, especially a year into this, pushing Bitcoin adoption, just to hear in his own words. And of course, people were excited about announcements, right? I think, so much hype around nation state Bitcoin adoption, so much hype around, would you see, a bigger announcement from Bukele? I don't know. What's he going to do? He's given you a city on a volcano that's the current pitch.
Yeah,
Where is he
right,
gonna, where is he going to take it? I don't know. Look, I think it's a net negative for the conference. I think it would have been great to have a president here, someone official, but, he is a president of a country. It's a responsibility, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I had the honor of meeting him I guess it was probably a month ago. He was really excited because we talked about the conference. We talked about him coming here. He's been to the U.S. several times, and he really likes Miami. He was really looking forward to it. And honestly, I got such a good impression from him. I got the impression that he really, really cares about his country. He wants it to evolve and change and bring economic opportunity. And he's been in Bitcoin since 2015.
Right. I was going to say, I didn't know if you had gotten the details of that story, but I had heard that Bukele has actually been with us for a while, right?
Yeah.
A Bitcoiner.
He was first an investor himself personally, and he was running businesses, a nightclub and bars in San Salvador, and he sold all of those when he ran for office. And then he was first the mayor, I believe, of San Salvador, and he was discussing Bitcoin back in 2017. And then, so it's actually not a surprise. It didn't come overnight, but he's put in the work. I mean, we talked about Saifedean's books. We talked about the Kaisers. We talked about Ray Dalio. I mean, he's a student of Bitcoin like all of us, which was really inspiring. So I was hoping to see him here, but it's a bummer.
Well, and I think that's why there's optimism. There's Bitcoiners everywhere, right? A Bitcoin president in the U.S., maybe not so far-fetched. I'm not sure what the panel thinks, but 2024 may be a bit early. I don't know if we'll see.
Probably.
But someday, probably.
As in probably a bit early.
Okay.
Yeah. But hey, it would be cool to see, but
Bitcoin president in Australia, maybe definitely too early.
even slower for sure.
Do you think we'll see a Bitcoin president soon?
I'm sure we will. And normally things move quicker than we expect in Bitcoin, right? I also want to throw out there that some of the exciting things that are going to happen today are not going to be on the main stage. We haven't covered that yet. But it's interesting that we, when we talk about which speakers we're excited about, and certainly I'm disappointed that Bukele will not be here today with us in spirit. But at the same time, I think that some of the technical discussions, the folks building the protocols, pressing what's possible. For instance, I know we have a panel on discrete log contracts, a little bit esoteric, perhaps.
Oh, hey, we'll be very practical soon.
Exactly. And so while it's a disappointment to lose him, I think that a lot of the things happening with less flash are going to be even more important in the long term.
Yeah, and the open source stage not being live streamed, but everything being posted to YouTube within 24 hours. So if people are watching the streams, just go to YouTube. There's a whole video collection out there.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of FOMO. I was at the Nakamoto stage because I was emceeing the second half, and I was missing out on the open source stage. And there were so many good
what
talks.
What a burden to be on that main stage, sir. What a burden.
I know, so many great panels today, and actually the first one is coming up. We're going to have the keynote. That's in less than a minute now. If you guys are tuning into this, we're going to have a welcome speech and opening remarks from David Bailey. So really excited to watch all of it. I mean, and I'm just so grateful to be here with you guys, and I appreciate how welcoming you've been. I mean, the whole community, I mentioned it before, but so welcoming to new people who want to educate the public public and contribute and learn from all of you. So thanks so much. And if you're watching this, next up, we're going to have that keynote and then followed by panel after panel. And we're going to be doing these discussions. So make sure you stay with us on the Marathon Desk hosted by Bitcoin Magazine here at Bitcoin 2022. Enjoy the next chat.
Thank you so much. Great job.
Let's check it out.